Chapter 20. A small silver ball appeared between them, and suddenly filled the area with golden light. Grenade Man's wounds were healed and his armor repaired, though Jarvie was just as much of a lich as he had been before. There was a second, darker light that partially overshadowed the first. Jarvie found himself clothed in plush silk wizard robes with a golden scepter topped with a diamond in his hand. Jarvie didn't know what was going on, but he knew an opportunity when he saw one. He raised the scepter over his head and moved to attack Grenade Man. Hold. At first, Jarvie thought the command had come from Grenade Man, but then he realized it came from the sphere. Jarvie found that he was quite held. No matter what he did, he couldn't move. The sphere grew larger, and they found themselves in a large throne room. It had vomited marble everywhere. The floor was nominally flat, but it curved in ways that hurt merely to look at. There was a fountain in the corner that was both wet and dry at the same time. Jarvie was fairly certain it would have driven him insane earlier, but with his new senses he could tell that they were merely folded back into impossible dimensions not comprehensible to the normal human mind. Jarvie noted with contempt that Grenade Man didn't bat an eyelash. Obviously, he was already patently insane. A throne, a real throne, not the pale imitation Jarvie had created for himself, roared up through the floor. Engravings of silver and gold etched its edges in ways that would make artists weep for joy and inspiration. A large steel sphere appeared over the throne. Jarvie knew that whatever was really there was masking its true form, but at the same time he found it ironic that he did not see whatever glamour they were no doubt projecting to Grenade Man. Again, Grenade Man did not appear to react with any kind of awe or fear. Then a gold sphere appeared, followed by a green sphere, but the green sphere quickly became the chaos he knew and loathed. Chaos's voice appeared in his mind.
"Oh no, Jarvie. You can shield yourself from me. There's really so much about magic that you don't know. We'll see if I end up teaching you any more."
Jarvie tried to communicate back, but found that it was a one-way link.
"If I could figure out how to watch your every thought without actually having to watch your every thought, I'd have beaten Order a long time ago. I really do need to find better help."
That made no sense. Jarvie quickly banished it from his mind. Jarvie said, "What is going on?"
"You are being judged."
"Who is doing the judging?"
"Why, Father, of course. Mother would never demean herself by participating in such games."
Jarvie was trying to think of exactly what that meant, and another voice appeared inside his mind. This one was deeper and more resonant.
"So, Jarvie, servant of chaos, you believe you have won the bet you made with the proxies of Order?"
It wasn't a question but a statement. Jarvie wasn't even sure he should bother replying, if they could read his mind so easily.
"My son was right, Lich. There is a lot you don't know about magic. Say the words, out loud or in your mind. It is your testimony to speak it."
Jarvie tried to move and found himself able to do so. He said, "The terms of the bet were simple enough. They had 6 months to prepare for whatever I could throw at them, a zombie apocalypse, and then they had to survive a month. None of them did."
"The one called Oscar was killed by the unburied dead at sea. The one called Beads was killed by treachery and died peacefully in her sleep. The one called Doc was slain in battle against thy creations. The one called Kevin was shot by a fool in the fog. Only 2 of the 4 were killed by your creations. How then do you claim victory?"
Jarvie had already thought of this, and he already had the answer. "Beads was killed by desperate men who were desperate because of my threat to destroy them with the zombies if they did not hand Beads and the others over to me."
"So it was you or the apocalypse that killed them?"
"I was the one that initiated the apocalypse, therefore I should be a part of it."
"Ah, Jarvie. So you are arguing technicalities. Are you sure you want to do that?"
"I don't understand. She died. Just exactly how are we defining apocalypse here?"
"That's why I am asking, Jarvie. Apocalypse. The end of the world and all that goes along with it, including zombies."
"I was a zombie."
"An interesting argument. You certainly did not intend your death."
"Damn straight."
"And the fool in the fog?"
"Well, he was running from zombies."
Probably. Grenade Man spoke. He was looking for Citizen Michelle. She had been taken by Jarvie the Necromancer. You would speak truth that aids the champion of chaos, champion of order? I am merely speaking the truth.
Grenade Man looked at Jarvie. Jarvie looked back. He was up to something. What was this?
Will you accept the testimony of the champion of order then, Jarvie, champion of chaos?
Jarvie tried to think of what Grenade Man was up to. If he didn't take it, he might be screwed. But if he did take it, he might be just as screwed. I do.
So noted. Are there any other arguments that you would make, Jarvie, champion of chaos?
He thought a few moments. Then he said,
Dead is dead, a bet is a bet. They bet they would survive, and they didn't.
And what of the child?
Child? What child?
The son of the one called Kevin, that was shot by the fool in the fog.
What child? Kevin doesn't have any children. And why does that have anything to do with anything?
Because we speak of technicalities, Jarvie, champion of chaos. And what greater method do humans have of surviving the pitiful span of years they have on this world, but to reproduce?
Jarvie was speechless. You're joking.
I doubt you would comprehend my humor, Jarvie.
Well, that's just stupid.
I must admit I do find your complete lack of terror refreshing. I can see why chaos likes you. Ignorance is so useful sometimes.
The voice turned toward Grenade Man.
Frank Noble, champion of order. Is there a boon you ask from Jarvie, champion of chaos, in exchange for your supporting testimony?
I would ask chaos by proxy for the most benevolent interpretation of loss.
A wise choice of words. One would almost think you had been schooled in our ways, Frank Noble, champion of order.
Grenade Man didn't say anything. What Jarvie noticed was that he used a normal tone of voice. Wait. He actually was starting to be afraid at this point. He had succeeded. They were dead. He was proven right. This wasn't fair. The Steel Sphere judge turned to Jarvie and used words that were surprisingly polite and civil, said,
That is for me to determine, Jarvie, champion of chaos. You had your chance to make your case. You failed.
But with the ears that were undead, the glamour was revealed for what it was. The spherical judge was infuriated with Jarvie for his insolence at breaking protocol. Jarvie tried to think of something to say, but whatever he said would be used against him. He tried to maintain self-control, but finally he snapped,
This is insane! I won! I won fair and square!
The judge didn't say anything at all.
If I had known there was going to be a trial, I would have brushed up on my omnipotent magical beings logic 101.
What worried Jarvie most of all was the fact that Chaos wasn't really speaking at all at this point. Order, the Silver Spear, wasn't either. They just seemed content to let the father and Jarvie speak. Grenade Man hadn't said much of anything either. He also seemed less insane, somehow.
If you have nothing meaningful to say, do not waste my time with words.
Jarvie found himself racked with pain. His flesh was rebuilding itself around his body and tearing itself apart in so many ways. Here with acid, there with fire, there with lightning. His eyes, the old eyes of mortal, briefly saw the fairy court before him with the mighty Oberon, the wizened wizard Merlin, and the beautiful but deadly Morgan Le Fay. But his lich senses told him that these were merely illusionary visages, shadows of forces much larger and more powerful than his tiny mortal mind could comprehend. The memories of pain became the reality of pain. His mind and intelligence were expanded purely for the purposes of torture. He knew the true nature of power and glory, only to have it stripped away again. Memories of sorrow and lives not his own were compounded into his being merely to increase the suffering. This was not justice, nor was it mercy, but pure gleeful power. Oberon did it because he could, and because Jarvie had opened the door for it through his discourtesy.
I find for order in this match. Reset your pieces, children, and come to me again when you have a desire for a judge. One of the two of them was quite interesting. Jarvie is to be stripped of his power, and the world restored to its previous balance in power.
There was a darkness and then a thunderclap, and Jarvie fainted.